As a kind of first-time filmmaker, I always feel like, you know, in like a band or a musician has their kind of first album, it feels like it's a kind of amalgamation of thoughts and songs they've been kind of, has been with them throughout their whole kind of youth and sort of working career and stuff. I just wondered if that's quite similar for you as a kind of first-time film. Is this a story and an idea that's been with you some time?
It's definitely been with me for some time. I think it was sort of just the end of 2013 that I came up with the idea. And developed it quite slowly with my producer Georgia Goggin, but I think you're right in that, like, a lot of the components of it, sort of the music and just sort of some of the thinking around it and the inspirations are definitely things pulled from you know, the things that I've really enjoyed and the things that were important to me in my like formative years, definitely. But yeah, it's like a mix of everything in a way, and I'd say like sort of the characters and the situations are kind of more pulled from, like, loosely based on like some people that I know, but more kind of from my imagination, and then the music and stuff and some of the more like, yeah, kind of formal elements are like, yeah, brought in from things that I love.
I mean, there's obviously such a musicality to this as well. Music's a huge part of this. I just wondered if that was that always a key, huge part of this right from the offset, or was that kind of elevated due to the casting of Alexandra?
No, it was always there. Like, it was always intended to be a kind of musical of sorts. I write a lot. I write to music all the time. So I think the kind of rhythmic elements of like the narrative definitely, I think, is as a result of me just sitting there with music on. Like, there's always music on whenever I'm pretty much doing anything. So yeah, I think that was the thing that guided it. But, you know, for the Candice character, we definitely needed someone like Alexandra Burke, and we were so lucky to have her because I think she just perfectly embodies Candice.
It almost seems wrong to call it a gamble, because we know she's such a wonderful performer, but I mean, she was having to do scenes and kind of, you know, and be in a film for really like the first time. So there is an element of gamble. So what helped? What made you think, yes, she's ready for this kind of role? Because there's a lot of nuance and complexity to this character.
I'd say it was like her audition tape. I've mentioned it before, but like, she just like actually sat herself in a car, which it was a car scene with her daughter, one of those car scenes, and she sat herself in a car with her friend, and she just sort of fully went into it. And I mean, of course, all actors, you know, usually they'll send a tape and they're against a white background, and it was just something about the way she didn't care. She wanted to like sit in a real car and act this out. She did an amazing tape, and then we saw her a couple of times like with callbacks, and it's just immediately I knew she just has something kind of really raw in there, and you know, she just sort of goes for things, and I thought that was just, yeah, I definitely knew that she'd be able to do everything from the quiet moments to the big bold like performing moments to the intimate scenes. I just thought she's really has this like fearlessness in her.
With regards to, you mentioned that kind of about this always having kind of music on, did you write, when you were writing this, did you write to music then? Yeah. Was it Tina Turner kind of stuff that you wrote to? Yeah,
I wrote I have like early playlists where I've labelled them Pretty Red Dress, so I think it like the title found its way in there like quite early on. But yeah, I was listening to like a lot of 60s stuff, and I think the Candice character was a mix of like kind of different, sometimes I have different character ideas and I kind of fuse them together, and the Candice character sort of came out of that. And you know, as Travis was already more developed, I kind of brought her in, and somewhere in there she was just really into these like 60s girl groups and soul and rock and roll, and so Tina Turner kind of, you know, is really like cuts through them all in many ways, and she kind of is the, you know, an icon of those eras, and so yeah, I just was listening to a lot of that music, and that found its way in there.
I want to ask obviously about casting your lead as well. I mean, this is such a fantastic role that has so much kind of vulnerability to it. I just wondered about how you've stumbled across Natey and what made him the perfect part.
And we did stumble across him because we went through a sort of painful casting process trying to find this actor who could play a guy who's just come out of prison, sort of been involved in drugs and gangs and stuff like that, but also someone who could put on a tight red dress and, you know, gyrate and have everyone think that's amazing, and like, you know, have someone who you believed could do that, and it just, yeah, it was difficult because we had actors, some who were you know, more towards the sort of more like kind of feminine end, and they could really, they really kind of had this great way of like performing. And then there were other guys who just wanted to play the tough role. So it was really hard to find that mixture. It was, you know, a lot of actors were hesitant, and yeah, we got close to pre-production and like, you know, we were kind of getting really nervous. And Natey's tape, just, I'm not sure where it came from. It just sort of was at very late stage, came to our casting director and felt like, just felt like it was a miracle.
I mean, because it feels quite, I mean, when you're watching it, it's like an important story. I mean, obviously, because it promotes the kind of strength and vulnerability, but obviously, particularly in a man living in a world where he feels like maybe he needs to be masculine to survive. Is that when you're making a movie like this, are you kind of aware of the important social commentary, or is that something that you're just telling a story that's important to you, and how people watch it and take it is kind of separate, if that makes sense?
I think just from, you know, sort of being who I am and sort of trying to like think critically, I think it's in there somewhere. But I think when I'm writing, I try to like throw all my sort of, I try to not to make everything too conscious, because in a way that sort of, I think, interferes with what I'm trying to do and the story I'm trying to tell. So I'd say that I didn't go in there like consciously trying to like make a political statement and trying to, you know, and I often would have like kind of conversations with actors about that and people who were interested in the role, because some people sort of presumed it was sort of trying to make this like, that it had an agenda behind it, or that it was kind of jumping on some kind of bandwagon because, you know, some of the topical stuff is really relevant now. And but it really wasn't that. It was sort of trying to go deeper below the surface and trying to find a deeper meaning in there. But yeah, I think, you know, we're all kind of shaped by the things that, you know, are important to us. So I think it's in there, but more on a subconscious level. Yeah,
because I mean, it is sort of moving at times. I mean, it's got that kind of kitchen sink, realistic kind of London feel to it, but at the same time, it's elevated by the kind of musicality, and there are moments of kind of humour and lightness to it. Is that something you can see running through your projects just for good? Because is that something, just finding that kind of because it's humanity, isn't it, that makes things quite light? I felt like the blending of tonalities felt quite fresh, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I try to do that. I think that is, you can always sort of find humour in sort of dark moments. I think, you know, there are some filmmakers that do it really well, where they're able to be very like brooding and like kind of like dark and just have the whole film be that way, and it really works somehow. And there are some, you know, just like completely going the other way. I don't know how you do that. I guess for me it's about both and kind of balancing them out. But yeah, I think like I try to sort of find humour in everything. And yeah, I definitely like enjoy sort of being self-deprecating at times. And yeah, like it's important to me, I think. Yeah.
I would say as a first-time filmmaker, you have to lean so much on your kind of heads of department and people to kind of come and help sort of and be specialists in their sort of subject. I know, and Johannes Radebe, obviously from Strictly or Celebrity MasterChef, which I know him from as well. I mean, how did he come to be involved in this? Because obviously in his field, he's such a master of what he does.
Yeah, he is absolutely amazing. We were looking for someone who could kind of choreograph a lot of like the scenes with Alexandra, you know, the dress scenes, the musical performances of it. But I thought it was really important for the Travis character to have a sort of someone who was almost a movement director as well, not just sort of the dancing, but also someone who could work with Natey and kind of bringing out his femininity and like playing a character. And yeah, I think Johannes did an amazing job at both. He actually has a scene that was deleted that I'm so sad about, that he has a little sort of cameo in it, which we had to delete. But hopefully that will find its way into the DVD extras.
Yeah. So my sort of final question really, I was watching this, and maybe it's because of the inclusion of songs, and of course, I mean, there are kind of, in terms of the sort of narrative, the sort of kinky boots. It got me thinking about this working as a stage production. There's something about this story that just feels like it works so well. It's quite contained set-wise, and it's very character-driven. Is that something you could be interested in pursuing one day, or would you be open to, if someone wanted to put it on ever in a theatre production?
I definitely would be open to that. Yeah, I think that's really interesting because years ago when I was writing it, I thought I invented the Tina Turner musical, which is obviously really big in the West End. And I was like, yeah, we had to change the musical in the film that Candice is auditioning to kind of more of a general musical. But I was really excited about that. But unfortunately, someone got in there. They got in there first. But yeah, I'd be really open to it being a stage musical. I think that could be like, I don't think I would be directing that, but I'd love to see someone else, you know, take care of that. Maybe Alex could, you know, she does a lot of West End musicals, so maybe she'd keep up her role in it. Who knows?
Well, I'm speaking to her later. I'll try and put seed into her mind as well. But just very quickly before I do finish, I wonder what is next. Are you working on the next project?
Yes, I am working on something at the moment. I'm really excited about it, but I don't want to say too much about it because I'm a bit superstitious like that. But it's sort of quite different. It's set in New York. It's about a young girl who has this obsession, and I'd say it's sort of a bit of a dark comedy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, pretty red dress, anything to go by. I can't wait.
Oh,
thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
your time
so
today.
much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!